2025 days away, and a lot of folks in their prep game, I don't know if we're becoming laissez-faire or if people don't believe things could actually happen. I'm not really sure which one of it is exactly. But I will say this, for years, people, as we get further and further away from the pandemic, I think people believe that everything's peachy dory, everything is good to go. I sit here in front of a $2,000 espresso setup, and I could be blamed for having sometimes complacency as well, but I still am doing stuff in my everyday carry, in my SHTF, in my prep, for when those moments inevitably are going to occur. We have examples from past, and past doesn't necessarily dictate future results, but we're still humans, and a lot of this stuff is still pretty predictable. Today's an Americano before we jump into my dark horse SHTF predictions for 2025, and maybe even some ways to be ready for them. We're gonna have some Greater Goods coffee. You can't really see it, but this stuff is pretty good. We're gonna have an Americano. I think I'm going to try to do 18 grams of coffee in, put through it twice the amount of water, maybe 3 times the amount of water, and enjoy myself for the day. But a lot of folks, man, it's just, the first one is the upcoming President-elect Trump. I think he's gonna have a health event, okay? So I think that at the end of the day, he's a 78-year-old man. Just like if I were a 78-year-old man, there are things that could happen to my body, to my mental, to everything around me that would cause my family concern. In this case, his immediate family would be concerned, but then the nation should be concerned at the end of the day as well. No matter who you voted for, we should always want our American president to be successful, because success, whatever the hell that means to you, means that our well-being, our individual lives should be improved. It's not always like a direct correlation, but that would hopefully be this, some of the results that we would want. I think that 2025, I know he has a 4-year term coming up, but I believe next year he's going to have a health event. I think this is going to cause chaos in the succession plan, because right now, first in line to the presidency, J.D. Vance, second in line to the presidency, whoever the hell they elect to be Speaker of the House on January 3rd. We don't know who that's going to be yet. It could be Mike Johnson. But I think that the realization from the tech bros in Silicon Valley who heavily backed J.D. Vance, they're going to be happy, that they put him into place. But traditional MAGA, traditional Make America Great Again folks may come to more of the realization that they may or may not like J.D. Vance. I don't know. I'm not in either one of the camps to know exactly how their brains are thinking about these situations. But if the upcoming president starts to look frail physically, if he starts to speak frail with, during speeches or whenever he's making press events, or if he's, having a press conference or something like that, then that's when we're going to start to see the powers that be could start pulling the strings, and regular people don't like when the powers behind the scenes start pulling regular strings. And one thing I've noticed more and more in the last half of decade is that the quote unquote people behind the scenes are starting to become just like more out in the open with it. And what I kind of mean by that is, we have people like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk who are billionaires, who are literally just give me a second. People like Vivek Ramaswamy and Elon Musk will normally be behind the scenes, at least how I would see it in my vision, pulling the strings, making stuff happen, doing things that regular Americans don't know about, whether it's just spending tons of money or using their power to do that type of stuff. And I think that they're coming from more behind the scenes to just in our face. The very first one, like I mentioned, I think that the health event is a real thing. It's something that could happen. I think that's something that will happen in 2025. The next one is a government shutdown. Now, listen, a lot of folks have a disconnect what it means for the government to be quote unquote shut down, right? A lot of people don't have an everyday concern about that, because if you're working in manufacturing, if you're an IT guru, if you're not directly connected to the government, sometimes it feels like you just want to say, shut that mug down, right? It can feel that way. I hear a lot of folks online talk that type of language. And that's one thing. I understand those people and what that means. But I believe 2025 will come a government shutdown. I think it's going to happen for some mundane funding reason that we don't know about yet, whether it be the president or somebody directly that can influence in Congress, just don't like some spending decision that we're making and they decide to shut this shit down. And here's the thing. I think this shutdown could last for weeks, maybe even months, and that is not a good thing. A lot of people, I think, correlate a government shutdown to not being able to go to a national park. But it's more than that. It's not just simply the inability to go to Yellowstone and watch a geyser pop into the air, right? You know, there's Social Security checks that need to be issued out. There's TSA employees that need to be paid. There's a lot of things that need to happen that don't happen when the government is not fully functioning. So we're having Americano, as I mentioned earlier. So let's get this popping. We're gonna pour the water for the Americano first. And I'm gonna try to do, let's see, if I'm doing 18 grams, we're gonna try to do, let's do 48 grams of water. All right, so we got 48 grams of water, and then we will do a 1-for-1 shot for the Americano. So I'm gonna literally run 18 grams of water through this thing and try to get my shot together. But I think the government shutdown could be long. I think it could be something that it affects a lot of more people than they realize. I don't know if people are 100% thinking about what it could mean to not get services from the government. That's something that could affect your everyday life. Folks who are expecting stuff like tax returns, people that are expecting stuff like, that stuff might not get processed. People who file their things or do their things quarterly or whatever the case may be, people may be directly affected by that. So we got a pretty decent looking cup of Americano here before we even take a sip. Let's just clean this up and move on to my next point. Because the government shutdown, I think, is a real thing. Oh, the last point, even with the government shutdown, is that there are over 1 million humans in America who work for the government. And as much as you may not like them, for whatever reason, whatever side that you're on, a lot of those folks do regular jobs that keep stuff going for the country, and they need to be paid as well to keep their mortgages and their bills and stuff like that. That can cause a lot of chaos. The third one, I think, is a prediction that could happen for SHTF in the United States is that members of Congress start to get into fistfights on the Capitol, maybe even in the House of Representatives. And I think that some of them might start using weapons. I know years ago, during the pandemic, Nancy Pelosi put in metal detectors because, they wanted all members to go through the metal detectors, make sure that no one's bringing on any weapons that weren't allowed directly onto the floor of the House. And when I think Kevin McCarthy became the Speaker of the House, he had those removed, and they've been gone ever since. I don't particularly care if members of Congress bring guns onto the floor, whatever. I just don't care. If they, I think we have a Second Amendment. I think that people can be responsible. But I do believe it's not the women. I believe it's the men. Their egos. They're used to making a certain amount of money. I think that things are going to happen on the floor of the Congress that could cause a fist fight or people to actually use weapons. I know last Congress, Matt Gaetz taunted a lot of people, but he was really level-headed whenever he faced confrontation. So whenever he was about to come with blows, he would never actually do it because I think he was a whole lot of bark but no bite. But there are some members of Congress who are bitey. They're not just all bark. They're not all hat and no cattle. And I believe that some people take it to the extreme that when their team is being attacked, that can lead to chaos in the real world. People really like their Congress people. They find out their congressperson gets hurt. They find out from a state or a district they absolutely hate. that could cause chaos. And let's just say it's coupled with the government shutdown. That could cause SHTF just because the representative that you sent to Congress is now up there fighting for their lives. I don't know. Oh, that's good. That's smooth. It's not overpowering. It's mostly water. That's not bad. The next one is I think that there's going to be a burst of the AI bubble. Now you're thinking like, how can this be an SHTF moment? I think that companies are leaning heavy into AI. Like artificial intelligence, they are moving heavy into it, whether they are trying to use it for Google search results, they're using it to help you craft stuff with chat GPT. But I want you to really think about this. What value is AI bringing to the consumer? We're the consumer. Like, why should we pay for it? There's a lot of people who are heavily investing in it, and I still have not seen a reason for me to invest my money into AI to help me on a daily basis. Now, do I use AI? Yes, I do. You know, when I make some thumbnails for this video, sometimes I use AI to help me fill in some of the blanks on the thumbnail itself. But am I dependent on it? I'm not. You know, and a lot of the results that we're getting from AI are a fallacy. They're not specifically very accurate sometimes. A lot of times, I may use AI to look up features for a specific device and it gets facts wrong. I believe that investors are going to slow down, in that AI is going to have a bubble burst. People are going to get laid off, and that big layoff and the big lack of investment could cause a SHTF moment. I'm not really sure about that one. I'm feeling pretty confident though. Number five, I think that people are going to immediately realize that Trump is a lame duck, and they're not going to be okay with Trump or Trumpism forever. What do I mean by that? As soon as he's sworn in on January 20th, 2025, he's a lame duck. This is his last term that he can serve. Now, a lot of people have speculated that technically in 2028, he can run as vice president, just like Obama could do right now, or Bill Clinton could do right now. You could run as vice president, and if the president were to resign or to pass away, you would become the president by succession. That does, you weren't elected. You only can be elected president twice, but you can be president a third time if you're the vice president. I don't think that's going to happen. He's going to be an 82-year-old man in 2028. I just don't see that happening. But I do believe that everybody's really supporting of him right now. But I believe that the powers behind the scenes may not be down with supporting Trump forever because they don't see a benefit to it. If he can't run again, they don't directly see him as anointing or coordinating someone, then people start to rub elbows. And us regular people don't like when we see people behind the scenes just kind of rubbing elbows and making things happen. If one of these two things happen when it comes to the fact that Trump is a lame duck on day one, this could be an issue. Number one, if they being whoever the hell behind the scenes, starts to make moves and plans to make it so that he can be president for a third time, people won't like that shit. I'm not talking about me. I'm just saying there are humans, crazy people in our country who won't like that stuff, just like there's people in the country that will love it. Or if people realize on day one that he's lame duck and they begin to try to push JD Vance out from being the next person that will be the one that should be president in 2028, or if there's a huge fight in preparation for 2028 for the person that they think should be president, that's not necessarily a good thing, and I think that could cause some type of chaos. Let me knock the rest of this back. Knock the rest of that back because my 6 point is real life. A nasty wave of social violence, civil unrest, I think is coming to us in 2025. And I think it's going to rise to the level of the 1970s. We have a book by David Frum as an example of the chaos from the 1970s, which could mirror itself today. Social media now brings people together. And because social media brings people together, unlike the 1970s when there was no such thing as social media, people are being rallied up or being fed certain things that may be factual or non-factual, misinformation or disinformation that is not controllable by the traditional news media anymore. Back in the 1970s, 80s, it was Walter Cronkite, and we had the three main stations that we watched, and we, quote unquote, for the most part, could rely on the information that we were getting. It's no longer like that. Use this as an example. The United Healthcare CEO was assassinated on the streets of New York, like where CCTVs exist everywhere. And that guy is now being lionized online by certain communities, not by a lot of people, but it just takes a pinch of people that lionize stuff like that that can result into social unrest. And I think that the type of things that we may see are riots, protests, targeted killings, fires, arson, that type of stuff. I think that's all a real thing. I don't want you to be surprised. A lot of times we get made up fun of because of the everyday carry stuff that we have or the SHTF stuff that we have, but it does exist for a specific reason. And what's gotten under people's skin a lot is the random bureaucracy that exists in America that makes decisions that you have no control of. You're denied health coverage for a specific reason, or if you submit for you know, for something health related to be taken care of, it gets denied. Your life is ruined at the drop of a hat from some unknown bureaucrat that you don't even know who exists. People don't like that. And one thing that has been growing a lot, especially since Citizens United, is the frustration of people of the role of wealth is playing in business and politics. Now, there's always been rich CEOs and there's always been rich folks in politics, but that has been bubbling to the top more and more, where people are getting more frustrated as we pay high inflation, and the people that are extremely rich just seem to have a lot of control. Like, let's just use Elon Musk as an example. He was the biggest, I think the biggest backer to some of the surrounding PACs when it came to the 2024 race. I mean, the dude is almost worth $200 billion. He invested almost $250 million into this past race. One human has the ability to do that. And look how much power he wields. He can never be president because he was born in South Africa. I think he's a pretty smart dude, coming up with PayPal and SpaceX and Tesla, not coming up with it, but running those type of things. And great business mind. But that doesn't mean he's best for us when it comes to our everyday lives and politics. And some people aren't going to like that shit. I believe those are the 6 SHTF things that could happen. How could you prepare for them? Because I don't think you can prevent them. Some of these are not preventable. You can't prevent an old man from having a health event. You can't prevent a government shutdown because we don't work directly in the Congress. You cannot prevent 2 knuckleheads or 7 knuckleheads on the floor of the House of Representatives going fisticuffs because of some BS, okay? But what you can do is ensure that your survival kits are prepped, your 3-day rations, your 5-day rations, so that you can stay inside of your home. If you want to have a certain level of ammo inside of your house, make sure you have that as well. The appropriate type of weapons to defend your family inside of your house so that you won't shoot through a wall and hit one of your kids. Making sure that you have any additional funds that aren't all tied up in financial institutions, that you have the ability to get to them. Not 100% relying on the minted coin that the United States has made, but other tradable and bartering type of items as well. Making sure that you have a substantial savings just in case the government does shut down and you have to rely on yourself for services you didn't even know the government provided. Ensuring that if we do have social or civil unrest, you don't go to them. And if you find yourself in those situations, how can you evade, fight, and recover to get yourself back home? Number of things to think about. I think about this shit all the time, but what about you? Do you think that any of my SHTF predictions are viable? Am I kind of all over the place? I think about this stuff. If this is your first time stopping by, hit the subscribe button. I would love to have you part of the battalion. If this is not your first time stopping by, well, thank you once again for watching me run my grape. For everyone else, we'll speak soon.